sustainability have been the topic of conversation in Yellow Springs for quite some time. Today, we are sitting down with the newly appointed coordinator of the Yellow Springs Climate Action and Sustainability Plan, Piper Fernwey, to learn who she is, her plans, and where do we go from here. Piper, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's just dive in. Who are you and how did you get started on this project?
Yeah, so I spent a decade working as a sustainability professional. When I lost my job because of the pandemic, I was a regional sustainability and community programs manager. So I worked with 20 different accounts across the Midwest universities doing sustainability work, from working with student projects to setting up composting to local food sourcing. And I purchased property in Clifton because it was a better middle ground for the work I was doing. I was spending a lot of time in Indiana, so I wanted someplace right off of 70, but farther west, and wanted to be closer to nature. So I moved out here unemployed, and it felt like my next step. So I immediately immersed myself in the community here to figure out what that next step was going to be. So I joined the board of a community land trust and organized a fundraiser. I co-wrote a grant with another nonprofit. But one of the things I did was I joined the Environmental Commission and heard that they were doing some climate action planning. So just as a volunteer, started walking them through that process, spending some more time outside of meetings, kind of leading that conversation. And then very early on, it was brought up that we're going to need to hire someone to do this. So I was kept as an alternate, hoping that that was enough, and then they'd be able to hire me on to do this work. When that wasn't the case, I resigned from Environmental Commission. The village put out an RFP, and I responded, and here I am.
Why do you want to do this work in Yellow Springs?
I moved here, Clifton, because I love communities like this. Some of the favorite communities I worked with in my past job were Denison, Oberlin. I've always felt at home in the small liberal communities surrounded by the rural areas that are a short drive from a big city. And like I was saying, that's part of why I moved here. I worked for the Forest Service doing trail maintenance. I'm an avid backpacker, but also this kind of work is what I've done, like walking into a community and building systems, building programming, tying together the existing efforts. I'm not building something from scratch. I'm doing coalition building. And that's what kind of sets me apart in my field and always has. My degree is actually in engineering. So I'm good at systems thinking and building those things. And that's exactly what this project needs, that it's lacked in the past, is that structure.
Why do you feel concentrating on a climate action plan for Yellow Springs is such a priority?
I can understand how people would think this isn't the issue to focus on right now when we're in the midst of a global pandemic, when our country and the world is facing a long overdue racial justice movement. But really, climate change ties into all of those things. Climate change is a public health crisis. I think a lot of people just think pollution, but we're talking about wildfires, flooding. There's just the antimicrobial resistance is a global crisis. The plan I put together is really a community-based approach. So it's input from community organizations, stakeholders, community members. It's mapping all of the existing initiatives and then getting input from the community, from these different stakeholders on where we're going.
So you mentioned a lot about this being a community-based project, and I think even the community watching it now is going to want to know, and I want to know, how can we get involved?
Yes, and please do. So we're kicking it off with a community meeting on August 23rd. It'll be in person outside at the John Bryan Center from 1 to 2:30. I'll talk about the plan in more detail, how to get involved, but specifically going forward, there will be a steering committee for the plan made up of past leaders in this climate action planning to honor their efforts and continue to use their expertise moving forward. We have so many passionate residents who have done so much work in this, but people get burned out. And without a system in place, the torch gets dropped and the next person has to start from ground zero. So we're planning on building an infrastructure so that torch can be passed.
Thank you so much for explaining and for opening it up so we understand just how much work it is. But there is a plan, there is a strategy, even beyond the completion. And the community can continue to be involved and continue to lend their support to this important initiative. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.